Well, I want to get more on this. Rosalia Bollen joins us now from near Deir al-Balah in Gaza. She's a UNICEF spokesperson. Rosalia, this must just be so frustrating for you and your colleagues at UNICEF. Just as you started getting supplies coming back into Gaza, it all grinds to a halt once again. Do you feel like the world just doesn't care about these children?
Frustrating is the right word because we indeed have been able in phase one of the ceasefire to considerably scale up the volume of aid supplies brought into the Gaza Strip, and these supplies have been reaching children and families in need. And then that stops, and it's frustrating because the humanitarian crisis here in Gaza persists. The needs of children and their families remain staggering. When you drive around Gaza, you'll see that the devastation is just everywhere. Some areas are more affected than others. For instance, Rafah, Eastern Khan Yunis, Jabalia. Some areas there's not a single house still standing, and so people don't have homes to go back to. Very often, they still live in makeshift shelters that are inadequate, that don't protect them. Issues around access to clean water continue, and that is exacerbated by this latest decision to cut power to the southern Gaza desalination plant. The importance of this desalination plant cannot be understated. This plant was producing an important volume of drinking water. We estimate that 600,000 people were benefiting from drinking water produced by that plant since November 2024, when that one electric feeder line was switched on again. And so a humanitarian crisis persists. We humanitarians do what we can to try to address the most basic needs of the most vulnerable families. But we need access and we need supplies to come in. And also in those 6 weeks where we were able to bring in much more supplies, it's not like we've been stockpiling them. We haven't been able to build up reserves because the needs are so high. So whatever we were able to get in, we've tried to distribute that as soon as we could. We haven't been able to pre-position supplies in our warehouses to build up a large reserve. And fuel is also an important element that now is prohibited from coming into Gaza. When you look at facilities like the southern Gaza desalination plant, now that electricity has been switched off, it has to fall back on its generators, but these generators need fuel to run. Hospitals need fuel to run. So essential civilian infrastructure, critical infrastructure, depends on fuel, on electricity. We need this to be restored as soon as possible because children's lives depend on it.
Yeah, talk to me about some of the real world consequences that this cut or this blockade, once again, of humanitarian aid is already having in Gaza.
Yeah, so really the most immediate consequence is access to drinking water, which is a massive issue throughout Gaza. There's another desalination plant in northern Gaza, large desalination plant, but that plant has been damaged through the war, and we haven't been able to repair it, although we're ready to do so. In the interim, what organizations like UNICEF are doing is that we bring in bottled water, and we work with smaller desalination plants and with water trucking to bring water to families in need throughout Gaza. But as you can imagine, it's not efficient at all, and we don't reach the entire population. A very common image that you see here in Gaza is children with buckets and jerrycans walking from their tent to a distribution point where they're waiting for the water truck to arrive. And then they fill up their jerrycans and they go back to the tent. And this is a daily task, that fetching of water. And this is what families at best currently have access to. Whether the water is clean or it's unclean, that this is what they'll have to use.
Okay, Rosalia Bollen, thank you so much for speaking to us here on TRT World. Much appreciated.